Started with our 2021 Grants Workshop. I'm Jennifer McComb, President and CEO of the Community Foundation of the Florida Keys. Really appreciate you tuning in today and spending time with us. If for some reason you do have to leave early, this is going to be recorded so we can share the recording with you, but we do hope you stay the whole time. But also you may have a colleague, if you're not the one writing the grant for your organization, you can always have us send the recording to your colleague. So you can see those of us with the bridge in the background. There's 3 of us here today from the Community Foundation. I want to first introduce Holly Allen. She's in the sweater. Holly is our Director of Philanthropic Services. She's currently the only other full-time employee here at the Community Foundation besides myself. We're a small operation here, as many of you know and have worked with us in the past. Currently, well, she is the Director of Philanthropic Services, so she wears many, many hats around here. Most importantly, she will be your primary contact during the grant application process and after the awards are made and the process. You can always reach Holly at our phone number 305-292-1502 or send her an email, holly@cffk.org. It's an easy one to remember. She has a Bachelor of Arts in English from State University in New York. She's been with us here for 4.5 years, and she's overseen this annual grants process for pretty much all those years, as well as special grants applications process after Irma and COVID relief. She's going to be helping answer questions today, as she's definitely our technical guru on the software. Next, I'd like to introduce Greg Charleston. He's going to be your first speaker today. Greg is our communications manager, and he's worked at the Community Foundation here in the Keys longer than any of us. He's been here, well, in August, it will be 9 years. He works part-time, and he does all our press releases, website updates, social media, and other special projects, of which there are many. He currently works out of Palm Springs, California, where he resides. But he does understand the Keys. He lived in Key West for many years, and he worked for us here full-time or part-time in 2012 to 2014. His other job that he has is he's a professor of writing and grant writing in the online graduate program at Goucher College in Baltimore. He also is very qualified to talk to you today, as he's a grant reviewer for numerous local, state, federal agencies and private foundations, including the cultural councils of Broward County and Palm Beach County. He's a busy guy reviewing grants. When he lived in the Keys, he taught English and creative writing at what is now the College of the Florida Keys, where he received the Provost's Award for Outstanding Adjunct Faculty Member. He also, I see Liz here, he also served as a board member of the Florida Keys Council of the Arts. He's a graduate of Butler University in Indianapolis, and like Holly and me, all 3 of us are English majors. He also has a master's degree in English and a bachelor's in journalism. So now I'll turn it over to Greg, who will share his screen with you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jen. Good afternoon, everybody. It's fun to see so many familiar faces. I wish we were all there in person, but we'll do our best this way. At least I can see you, so that's helpful. We're going to share some information about developing grant proposals today. I'm going to start with just some general information about developing grant proposals, and then we'll talk specifically about the 2021 community program of the Community Foundation. There are a number of changes this year. I think the form is fairly simple, and so I think you'll find it easy to get through. But so we're going to talk kind of general and then get into some specifics. If you're a novice, I hope that you can learn some new things. And if you're a seasoned grant writer or have been through all of this stuff before, maybe it'll be a refresher. And when we get to the tips part, maybe you can add some of your own tips as well. So just hang on, we'll get there to the new application in just a couple of minutes. So if we can, we're going to hold questions until the end, because we might answer some of these as we go along, but y'all know how this works. I think you can type your questions in the chat and then we'll get there. And if we want to do them in person at the end, we'll try to see how much we can do, but we'll try to do that. And save the last 10 or 15 minutes for questions. All right, can you see my screen? Did it work? Yay. That's always part one, right? Okay, so we're gonna start at what I call the very beginning. I think that's a song somewhere, right? Let's start at the very beginning. I won't sing it to you. And talk about just the steps involved in grant writing. So it might, if you haven't written grants before, you've done this, you probably know that the writing part is actually the last thing that you want to do when you're approaching grant writing. You want to first start by reading the guidelines and make sure that you meet all the eligibility requirements. That's especially important in this program because there are some new eligibility requirements. You want to prepare, identify. In this case, you'll have to have a project collaborator. So you want to make sure that you have that identified and all the required materials ready. Then you want to put a plan together, make sure that you can answer the basics of the project and develop what that plan is before you finally, last step, write the proposal and you tell us about all the great work that you plan to do. So just a refresher to think about, you know, sometimes we start to get right to the application and fill it in, but it really is more helpful if you read through everything first and make sure you understand what we're looking for before you get there. So when we talk about projects as opposed to operating support, we're talking about a specific connected set of activities that has a beginning and an end date. And generally a project has a specific set of objectives. So what you're trying to do is answer the question of, you know, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Or what is the issue that you want to deal with? Or what is the opportunity that you're trying to provide people? So if you can answer that question, then you usually have a specific project. And of course, projects can have multiple components as long as they are all cohesive and they relate to the whole. Now, just a few things that, and you'll hear us say this a couple of times, but just a few things about the 2021 Collaborative Grant Program of the Community Foundation. We are looking for a project that is new or different from what you are currently doing. Doesn't mean it has to be entirely different, as Jen will explain, but just have a different component. We are asking for a nonprofit collaborator, one that's serving the Florida Keys. You will be looking at the area of the Keys. It's not important that you serve all areas of the Keys, but we will be looking at geographic distribution as we're making a concerted effort to reach all parts of the Keys. But essentially, whatever project that you're going to come up with, the bottom line is you want to talk about how the money will be spent and what will be accomplished with that project. All right, so let's think about, as we're writing this, because I have a journalism background, I think about writing a grant much like I would approach writing a story. You know, every proposal, everything that you're talking about should answer these basic, you know, the 5 W's and the H questions, which is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So I always say to people, if you can answer all of these questions, and we know as a grant reviewer reading your application that you have worked through all of these things, then we should be in pretty good shape that we have all the questions answered that we're looking for. So I want to go through just the components of a typical grant proposal for a minute and why these things are important. And you'll find that most of these questions in one form or another are included in this application as well as they are in most grant applications. But I think it's important to know why we're asking that and what we're looking for. So most grant proposals, including this one, will ask something about the organization. Okay, your mission statement, maybe some of the key history, the key background, what's your annual budget, who are you serving? And the reason that those questions are asked is because it shows the qualifications or the capacity of your organization to handle the project. So this is answering, if we look at that who, what, where, when, why stuff, this is answering the who is doing the project. Applications will typically cover a project overview. So that's how are we using the funds? You know, what's our objective? What are the components? What is the timeline for this project? Why is this important? Because it shows planning. It shows planning of the project. It's going to answer the what, where, and when of the questions that we're looking for those answers to. It's surprising, by the way, how many times when you read grant proposals, how many people don't tell you what they actually want the money for. I find this so amazing because it seems like that would be a basic thing, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. And those of you who have reviewed grants, you know that that can be true. Also, you want to define what's the need. What is the need that we're trying to solve with this program? So again, if you have any key facts or any research, I mean, this application is going to be pretty short, so you don't have a lot of time to go into a lot of details. But if you have research, anything that will help show the why. Why are we doing this project? Why is this important? That's always good. Then you're going to talk about your outcome or your evaluation. This is always a basic too, because I think nothing is more important to funders than what's the impact. You know, what is going to happen as a result of this project? So how will you assess the project? What are your measurable goals? How are you going to supervise the budget going forward? This is showing us how. How is this project going to happen? Now, a lot of times applications will show or ask you to show what potential future funding is going to be possible. So how will the project continue beyond this grant? Because what we're looking for sometimes is sustainability. How are you going to sustain this program once we've created it? This again also shows you the how. The good news about the collaborative grant program that we're going to talk about today is we're not going to ask you about sustainability. This can be a one-off project, so which is good. But a lot of times funders will ask you, if we're going to start a project, how are you going to continue that? And then of course, usually funders will want to know what other sources of support that you're getting, any other income, any other collaborations. Why? Because this shows community support. We're looking for broad support. This also answers the what, you know, what's going to happen as a result? How is this project going to be put together? And then of course we have the good old budget. People love budgets. The budget to me is the same story as the narrative in numbers. So if we think about the project, the narrative as the words, we think about the budget as the numbers, and they should match. Okay, they should always match. This again, if you review grants, you've seen a lot of times that you'll read the project proposal and then you get to the budget and there's no relation. Sometimes that's because the person who does the budget is not the person who writes the narrative. So again, just make sure that they match. Again, this is going to be a fairly simplified budget for you to fill out for this program. This also helps show the what, answers that what. And then finally, if there's any supplemental materials, typically people will ask you to attach a board list or letters of support or links to website. For this particular program, there are going to be optional letters of support that you can attach to that and links to websites or videos. So you have that opportunity to add that information. Again, this helps back up the who part of that. So that's what most applications will ask you for in one form or another, and that's what ours will do as well. So again, the budget should match the narrative, make sure that you were telling the same story. If you haven't done budgets before, which I know just from looking at several of you that are sitting here, you've done a lot of grant proposals, so you know the income is showing you the funding sources, and the expenses are basically showing you the cost of the project and how the grant will be spent. Again, the good news about this particular application is there's no budget worksheet. You'll only have to show how the grant's going to be spent by category. So if you've had a chance to look at that. So let's talk for a minute about grant reviewers. I've been doing some grant reviewing, but for this, for the Community Foundation, for this particular program, the grant applications are reviewed by our grants committee. And the grants committee is made up of board members and also non-board community members from up and down the Keys. So the committee is going to review all of these applications. It is a competitive grant process. So they will review all these applications. We typically get more proposals than we can fund. They will make recommendations to the Community Foundation's Board of Governors. So just a fact, Jennifer and Holly and I will help you any way that we can with writing this grant application, but we don't actually make any grant recommendations. Those all come from the committee and the board. All right, so now let's talk for just a minute about writing a good grant proposal. Again, you all who have been doing this, you probably have your own tips. These are just things that I keep adding to as I see them, because I've been reviewing a lot lately. And I just did a private family foundation not too long ago, as well as the Palm Beach County Cultural Tourism Grants. And these are kind of follow across the board things. So some of them may seem very obvious to you, but just sort of tick through them as you go, because you'd be surprised how many times these are missed. One little aside here, I will say too, if you ever have the opportunity to be a grant reviewer, do it. Absolutely do it. It is the best way that you can write a grant, is by getting on the other side and reviewing grants. So just, if you have that opportunity, take it. First of all, you want to follow the instructions. It seems pretty obvious, but if you don't follow the guidelines, if you don't follow the instructions, if we have more requests than we have proposals for, what's the quickest way to eliminate some of those from the funding pool? Is, oh, they didn't follow the directions. They didn't include this information. So first and foremost, make yourself at the top of the grant pool, follow the instructions. Answer all the questions, don't skip any of the questions, and make sure the questions address the criteria. Now, an interesting thing, like this is an application form, so that's going to be fine. You'll get the question, you'll get the answer. But just as an aside, if you're writing a narrative and it's not an application, make sure you include the question, because sometimes when you're reading a narrative, you don't know what they're addressing. So again, that's just if you have something that's just a narrative. Again, I said this a minute ago, but make sure that we know how the money will be spent. That seems obvious, but if you're asking for $10,000, make sure we know where $10,000 is going to go. And make sure the need is compelling. Again, people want to fund compelling stories. They want to fund compelling applications. And if you can, support the need with facts or with data, if you have that available. That always helps make the case. Again, you want to show impact. How is this going to change? How is this going to affect quality of life? How is this going to affect health and human services? How is this going to improve the environment? Whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And if you have the space, I always think it's great to tell a story. Tell a story about someone that you've helped, or a family that's been helped, or someone who's, kids that its lives have been changed by a program that you had. You don't always have a space. Sometimes now, if we're giving you like 200 characters, you don't have the space to tell a story. But if you do, it's great. Or if you can tell a story, or you have, testimonials on your website, link us to that website so we can read those or see a video of this in action, because the facts tell, your story, but the stories really sell that story. So I always think it's great to tell a story, something personal. Again, because this program asks for a collaboration, make sure it's evident and it's coordinated. Nothing's worse than having a collaborator and then they just seem like you just added the name. They're not really part of this project. And again, I don't know, I must feel strongly about this. I think this is the third time it's been up here, but make sure the budget and the narrative match. I also want to say that if you're applying, always assume that the reader knows nothing about you. So because we think, well, we're in the Keys, surely they know who we are, what we do, but they don't always. So just assume they don't know anything. And that goes for avoiding jargon and acronyms. We speak in acronyms, and then suddenly you'll get sentences that the CFFK is working with CFK to help the FKKC, and then it makes no sense. So just be careful about using acronyms and buzzwords and just using industry jargon that people might not understand. You want to be clear, you want to be concise, especially for this application where there's a word count. You want to be as concise as possible. And I always say you want to be, positive and direct as well, because nobody likes to read a negative grant proposal, right? They want to read that you're doing something in a positive way, even if you're solving a negative situation. So again, just look at the language. I think it's great to use words like we can do this, or we will do this, rather than, well, we could, or we would. You want to have language that's pushing you forward. We will change this situation. Okay, but you want to be accurate, you want to be honest, especially when we're dealing with budgets. And enthusiastic. No one is more passionate about the organization than you are. And so that should come across in your application as well. Just a couple more things. You want to be careful copying and pasting. No one assumes that you are writing this for the very first time, that you have written a lot of grant applications and you're going to take your mission and your key programs from another application. Be careful, because what happens sometimes when you cut and paste is it can duplicate. You can get a funder's name in there by mistake. You know, just always customize your answers, even if you're cutting and pasting. It's just, again, proofing will help this, but just be careful, because I've seen that. It's a little embarrassing to read applications and see where they've just missed that. Again, the spelling, the punctuation, the math errors, they all hurt the credibility. So you want to have something that's free of errors. So I can't stress enough to proofread the application and then have someone else proofread the application. And I always suggest that you have someone not familiar with your project review that proposal. So, you know, maybe that's a spouse or a friend or a colleague that doesn't work with you, but someone who doesn't know your organization can sometimes say to you, I don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense to me. So again, make sure that you proofread. All right, and then let's talk about just this particular collaborative grant program. Just a few things for here. You want to make sure that this is an application with a word count. So be concise, answer the questions, but realize that, you know, you have only so many words to use. I do an exercise with my students where we write a need statement in grant writing, and I only give them 7 sentences. So it's a good exercise to look at, you know, how can I be as concise as possible, but answer the question. So when you've got word counts, you really have to look at that. Make sure that the grant spending equals the grant request. Jen will talk about this in just a minute when we go through the application components, but in this particular case, the budget, you're going to ask how you're going to spend the money. Just make sure that how you're spending it equals what you're asking for. Okay, the letters of support matter. These are going to be optional to include, but sometimes people will say, you know, it's difficult to get them, or sometimes you'll write them and give them to people just to sign their name to. Just be careful about that, because I've read applications where the letters of support are all the same. And so, or they say, sure, we're involved in this project, but they don't really show a commitment. So if you're going to attach them, make sure that they're good and people get from them that they're an enthusiastic, good collaborator. So there should be a little bit of passion and excitement in there, and they should be different. That's the bottom line. Even if you help them put them together, make sure they're different. Again, there's a collaborative element where your collaborator needs to also serve the Florida Keys. In this particular application, as we were talking about definitions of projects, there's no specific definition of a project, but think broadly, think creatively. Bottom line is you're just going to tell us how the money will be spent and what will be accomplished. So it does not have to be this complex project. It does not have to serve the entire Keys, but just be creative about, you know, what's the activity that we want to get support for. And then of course, proofread and submit by the deadline. Nothing also will kick you to the bottom of the pile is if you miss the deadline, which in this case is May the 28th. So you have about a month to do that. All right, so at this point, I'm just going to say good luck on that. Thank you for indulging me with the tips and the application highlights. And I'm going to let Jen talk specifically for a few minutes about this particular application, and then hopefully we'll have some time to go back through and answer your questions. Thank you. All right, Jen, I'm stopping.
Thanks, Greg. That was very helpful. There we go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about our specific grant application this year, although Greg's tips are helpful for any grant applications you write. So I'm glad you all could participate. It's so nice to see over 40 people here. So our theme this year that we came up with is moving forward better together. Nobody wants to think about last year, and we know you're all doing great work. You've been doing great work the whole time, but we're thinking just put a new twist on things so we can make the Keys an even better place. So this is a cycle of grants that we have every single year. Other years we've had, Hurricane Irma relief grants, Hurricane Wilma relief grants. Last year we had many rounds of COVID-19 relief grants, but this is our regular grant cycle. We're expecting that the grants that the committee will approve will be between 2,000 and 10,000 per organization. And we're giving out, we expect to give out a lot more than last year. We gave out around 144,500, and the year before we gave out 160,000. Thankfully this year we've had some extra gifts come in, and we know we plan to give at least 200,000 as long as you all apply and have good applications, which I'm sure after hearing Greg's presentation you will be. I do have to say that 64,000 is restricted to arts and culture, and some of that particularly in Key West. And why I mention that is, the funds that we're pulling from, a lot of these we're using just the interest off endowment funds, and they were established by donors, lots of different donors, and some of them are no longer with us. They were estate gifts, and they specified that the money every year had to go to arts and culture. And so it's not any of us saying that we don't like the homeless or the environment or any of that. It's what the donors left. And that's why a lot of our strategic plan at the Community Foundation is to bring in new donors that will create annual grants for many different causes. That said, if you're thinking right now already, you might have a couple of different projects in your mind, and one of them happened to involve the arts. You might want to pick that one, lean toward that one, but not necessarily. Okay, this sounds kind of silly, but you do have to be a 501c nonprofit, which I see most of you attending today are, and we do accept applications from faith-based organizations, but we can't give to individuals or just regular businesses. And we can only accept one application for your nonprofit, even though I know you have lots of different great projects. However, the collaboration aspect, the nonprofit you're collaborating with can also submit their own grant request that has nothing to do with you. So it's one per organization total. We're only accepting online applications. It's a great new application system. We invested a lot of money into it. We're very happy with it. And the project, of course, must be in the Keys and completed by next year in April. Although if you can complete it, if it's a summer camp and you're going to have it done this year and within a couple of months, that's fine too. You can turn in your report and be done with it. Like we've said a couple times, this year we're asking for a collaboration with one other nonprofit at least. It could be more. And it's new project or program, just a twist on it. You could be serving a new audience. Maybe you give performances and you're going to have a few at-risk children from a nonprofit come to one of your performances. That would be, something easy. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, or just put a new strategy behind something you do, or just test out something you've been thinking about. This is a great way to have a few $1,000s to test an idea that one of your board members or one of your supporters had, and just test it out. It might end up being something that you end up doing for years to come. And because the Community Foundation hosts the Unsung Heroes Volunteer of the Year celebration every year, we do love to celebrate volunteers year round. We have the Volunteer of the Week and Keys Weekly every week. And if you can somehow incorporate volunteers into this program that you're doing, that's even better. It's not required. Last year, we requested video reports from some of our COVID-19 grant recipients. And boy, did we get a lot of views on those videos, and they weren't professional. Most of the executive directors or volunteers or board members would just take some video with their cell phone, but they were very well received. And so we're going to ask for those again. And it doesn't have to be a professional. In fact, we prefer that you don't spend money on a professional video. Just maybe as say you're doing a performance for the arts, just have someone take a video with showing the people in the audience clapping or whatever you could. Now, I mentioned our new online application portal. It is Foundant grant system. And I have good news for anyone here today that has applied for the Ocean Reef Community Foundation grants last fall, because you already used the program, because they selected the same one we did. And so you'll be a wizard when you go in to enter your information. As Greg mentioned, you've got almost a month to put all this together. I've written a lot of grants in my day, and there's no reason to wait till the last minute. You never know if we're going to have a hurricane and the power goes out. So if you can get it done earlier, the order doesn't affect anything, but there's no reason to procrastinate. The earlier you start working on your application, the better, so you can firm up what you're doing with your collaborator. Now we're going to try something new this year that was requested by some of our donor advised fund holders, and it's going to greatly benefit you all, we believe. They've asked, they're always asking, oh, what should I give money to? And this is the perfect time, because you're all coming to us with things that they can give money to, great projects, worthy projects. So before our committee looks at the applications, as long as you check the box on the application that you don't mind if we submit it to our donor advised fund holders, they will also be receiving it in advance. So that's great news, because they may choose to fund your program even before our committee does. They're going to have the top pick, and then we'll look at them afterwards. And some of them could be partially funded by a donor of ours and partially funded by us. And we're going to allow them to pick line items off your budget. So if you had, say you had $2,000 for advertising for something, there could be one of our fund holders that says, well, I don't want to pay their staff member time, but I'll pay the $2,000 advertising. And so they could be funding a line item. And that's one reason we have the budget the way it is. We're going to make the announcements in June, definitely by June 30th and possibly earlier. And we're going to give the money out right after that, the full amount. We're not doing like United Way where we pay monthly installments. You'll receive the full check at the time in June or July. And like we mentioned, you're going to have a report with a video due by April 2022. But the earlier you can submit the report, if you're done with the project, we might as well get it into us. And that way we can help publicize the grant. And we find when we send out press releases and post the videos on our websites, often the nonprofit itself will receive new followers and new money that we don't even know about. So here's what the Foundant application portal looks like. For those of you that didn't apply, that haven't applied to other grants using it. It's very easy. You'll go to cffk.org/grants and click onto a link, and here's what you'll see. You create your own email and password, and even if you created one for Ocean Reef, you do have to create your own unless you have Grants Hub, which I don't believe very many people in the Keys have. So you'll have to create a new user ID password, and we only have one per organization. So if you're working with a grant writer or someone else, you'll have to share that information. And if you have any tricky, this might come up in the questions, but if you do want, in fact, I saw how do you collaborate with someone, how do they proofread for you? They can just go in and look at your application. They can log in under your credentials. And if you happen to get a duplicate applicants, we can help you merge those together. Just again, I'm always saying call Holly, but Holly can fix anything in the system and help you out. Another way, if you had, say, a board member that wasn't really tech savvy but wanted to take a look at your application before you put it in, we have a little area on there. You'll see it where you can download your application package, and it will download everything you typed in into a PDF, and then you could just print that out for somebody or email it to them. So a lot of it's just very self-explanatory. You create your account. But I do want to point out one thing we made that's really neat and fun is you can just click a button and say enter Guidestar information. Guidestar.org, as many of you know, is a database of nonprofits across the United States. And it will auto-propagate the name of your organization from your identification number, your tax ID, your mission statement, the year established, all of that. So even if you're kind of new to your organization or just volunteering to help fill out the application, all that, you don't have to research the founding year because that's probably, it is in Guidestar and it will fill that in. Now that said, I want to caution everybody to make sure that your Guidestar information is correct. Go and then update your mission statement and all that. Track down whoever's in charge of that. And after you fill out the thing to create an account, you'll get an email confirmation, and you'll have to click on that, and then you'll be in, and then you can go and just start completing it. Again, when we discussed having this workshop today, originally I thought, oh, I could just walk you through it and go through the application. And then I watched some other videos of other community foundations that did that, and it was just really dreadfully boring. So you've filled out online forms, I trust, at this point in your life. If you haven't, you should probably have somebody else fill this out for you. But it's very self-explanatory. And if you have any questions as you go along, you know, Holly and I and Greg, we're on your side. We want to see you get the money. We love all of you guys. So please call and ask us questions, even if it's like, oh, I'm thinking about this project or this project. Especially Holly, she has been working with this grants committee for many years, and a lot of them are continuing members on the committee. So even though she and I can't guess what they would do, we can give you our best, what we would do if we were in your situation. And Greg touched on this a few times, but I guess we really want to hone in this point that simple and short is good. If you always have, you know, you show movies and you're going to show a movie, but bring in some at-risk children this time, there's no reason to write and fill up every single word. You know, last year, through this process, our reviewers had 85 applications, and they all read all of them. So try to think through, if you were them, would you want to read on and on and on about, you know, things that aren't really totally applicable? Just keep it short and very positive and upbeat and exciting, and something that they would want to give money to. And you'll see that we have a weird thing in our application which will help us, that you can select which area of the keys your program serves. But by no means are we saying you should serve more than one area. If you have always done your program in Marathon and you're good at your program in Marathon, there's no advantage to you in this application process for now, oh, for this one project, I'm also going to add in Big Pine. We just want you to have a successful program no matter where it is, as long as it's in the Florida Keys. We made the budget a lot easier than last year. Before, you know, Greg referenced you could have one person doing the 6FEL spreadsheet and then another person writing the grant request. We just have little forms that you'll fill in how much goes toward personnel for the project, how much will go toward supplies, how much goes toward advertising, that type of breakdown, instead of having to do some big complex worksheet, because we know the maximum you're getting is $10,000. You shouldn't be working for the entire month on this application. It should just be, you know, a few hours. I did it, and of course I was making it up, the actual program, and I completed the whole application in 15 minutes. So that being said, you do have to do some research for your own program and make sure you have buy-in from the people who will actually be doing the program within your organization. But the actual typing in should not take you a lot of time. And we said this many times, but because we have the maximum characters, don't feel you have to use every letter possible. And so while I have all of you, it looks like over 40 people here from nonprofits, I thought I'd just take a minute to tell you about other resources that the Community Foundation has to offer. Many of you on the call are familiar with them, especially our Leadership Success Academy we've held for many, many years, and it's training for nonprofit board members, as well as executive directors and staff members on important issues like board governance, finance, marketing, development. If you have a new board member, I highly encourage you to have them attend. Usually we do it in the spring, but we missed spring 2021, so for obvious reasons. But now that things are opening up, I'm really aiming to have this happen in August 2021. And I know a lot of people travel in August, but also a lot of us, we at nonprofits, can be slower without having some of our seasonal board members around. So hopefully they can come, and some of your board members, and we can get this going again. We're also looking to have it in Key West, because I realized it had been since 2017 since we held it in Key West. So we're bringing it back here this year. We have other Center for Nonprofit Excellence workshops. We're going to have a book signing coming up, also this summer, I hope, in person. We had the Ross McKee Fund bought books from a very famous CEO of a foundation who will be traveling to Key West to talk with you and answer your questions. And every nonprofit that attends will receive a book at no charge and can have him sign it. I mentioned our Volunteer of the Year event that's held every January, and that's coming up. We encourage every nonprofit to nominate somebody to be their Volunteer of the Year. You can nominate one person every year, and it can be the same one over and over. And it's great recognition for you because you can get your nonprofit in the Keys Weekly every week and on our social media, and that just brings attention to what you are doing. The Community Foundation, one of our main roles in the community, is holding permanent endowment funds. We currently hold endowment funds for 11 nonprofits across the Keys. I feel it's so important for everyone to have a backup fund, and I never realized it more than ever last year when nonprofits called to take money out of their funds because their performances were canceled. And I saw the value of what the Community Foundation does because we were here for them when they really needed that money. And my Rotary Club, Key West Sunrise Rotary, back in 2005, they put $175,000 into a fund. And today it's over $734,000 because the stock market over the years, it just goes up, and that's how it works. And that is a rainy day fund for, they haven't been taking money out, but I just feel every organization to ensure the future of the Keys and all your nonprofits and just keep this a great place. We hope that you'll have the chance to invite us to one of your board meetings or just to come meet with your staff and talk about what you could do to create a fund with us. And you can also hold special campaigns like the homeless shelter right now they have a campaign fund with us just to build the shelter, and Cornerstone Resource Alliance Fund. And we also are available, at no charge to help you build your planned gift reservoir, people who have you in their will, and we want to help them do that, especially through the Community Foundation, and if not through the Community Foundation, just straight to you. But we want to be invested in the future of the Florida Keys. We can help you meet with potential donors. We will create a brochure for you. We've done it for several other organizations at no charge and print them at no charge, so you can have them available at events or in your lobbies. And last, we have a nonprofit directory on our website. All of your organizations are most likely on it, and you should check to make sure the information's correct. And our new software will actually be upgrading that. And with that, I want to thank you all for being here today and answer any questions that you may have. Some may already be in the chat box.
Yeah, shall we go through? I think we've answered some of these, but maybe we should just go through and do these first, and then if anybody has anything they'd like to add. So one of the questions was about proofreading an online application, and Jen, I think you talked about this, but there is the ability to print a PDF version of the application, and you can use that to proof, or you can have somebody else log in and proof the application, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. There was a question about how we defined the new program, whether that's new to the Community Foundation or new to you as a nonprofit. And it would be new to you as a nonprofit. I believe Holly said that, new as in new for your organization in some way. So whether you've applied for funding from the Community Foundation or not, we are looking for this to be a spin or some new component to an activity that you're currently doing, right? And then there was a question about the grant program being available, and yeah, the Community Foundation has given away community grants for a number of years, but the program does change depending on what's going on. Last year they were focused a lot on the COVID-19 relief efforts, and so they change from year to year. I will say, Jen mentioned the video requirement, but if you go to cffk.org/videos, you can see all the nonprofits. We posted their videos that they submitted for their final documentation or final report last year, and they're really good. But you can go through some of them and see what people did with how they spent the money and what they did. So that's just a little plug to take a look at that. Can you speak a little more on partnerships between organizations you would like to see? Do you want to talk about that, Jen?
Sure. Well, we don't want you just to put somebody's name on it. We want to make sure that the organization knows that they're partnering with you. They don't have to be a huge part of the program. Like I said, I used the idea a while ago. If you have a performance and you just make it available to some, another nonprofit's clients for one of the performances, it's not a huge issue, doesn't create a lot of extra work for you, but it will really help the community and show partnership. I'd like to suggest that you use the collaboration letter. You can submit up to 3 letters of support, and you are you are limited on the number of words in the application, but those letters of support are a way for you to tell even more about your program. And if you're collaborating with another nonprofit, which you would be, ideally you should be having a letter of support from that nonprofit. And within that letter, you could talk a lot about, what more about your project than you have in the application. So if the reviewers are on the edge between giving you the money or not, then they can go to those letters and there'll be even more information that's selling your idea to them. But as far as guidelines on specifically what the partnerships would look like, we're looking to you to move forward better together and to be creative however you want to be.
Great. Does that answer your question? I hope. Our school is on a July 1 fiscal year. Our new budget may not be available by the grant due date. Is it okay to use the current year budget info for the grant request? Sure. Yeah, I think whatever is the grant, this is going to ask you not so much about your own finances, but the finances for the project, right? How you're going to spend the money, what your grant request is for. So however that works for the project is fine.
Yeah, it asks for organization budget. And if you don't have your budget for the upcoming year, of course, fill in the number for your organization last year. And then the project budget, you're going to be estimating because you haven't completed the project, but that would be an estimate.
Clarify the new program for your organization. Can we re-grant to individual artists, for instance? So I don't know, again, Jen, do you want to talk about just new program? I think, I hate to say new program, but it can just be a different component of something that you're already doing, right?
Right. Yeah, one thing that might be helpful to people too, we posted a PDF of the entire application on the cffk.org/grants. So you might want to download that PDF and take a look before you start applying, because then you'll see all the questions in one place, and then you'll know maybe I don't even want to take the time to apply. But these are the things that we put in under newness. New beneficiaries that haven't been served by your organization in the past. New or modified services will be provided, or new strategies will be implemented. Those are the 3. You could do all 3, but this is only $2,000 to $10,000. So don't go crazy. Do something simple that is going to be successful.
And then the question about re-granting to individuals, is that?
I don't see any problems with it. Do you, Holly?
No, we have given grants for granting to individuals before. So if it can meet one of those requirements for newness that Jen read, then it would be appropriate.
Okay. Can each partner in a collaboration submit a grant application for separate projects?
Yes. So each application will be judged on its own merits and not on any work that the organization happens to be doing to help another nonprofit get a grant.
Right.
So,
does that make sense? So you can apply as an organization, and you can also be a collaborator on someone else's application.
Just remember that your own project or proposal needs to also fulfill the requirement independently itself. You can't just say, well, I've already fulfilled the collaboration requirement because I'm helping someone else. Yours needs to do the same.
Great. Is there a special interest or priority given to organizations serving low-income individuals or families? We're always interested in serving all members of the community. I don't know that there's a priority given to that. I think that's up to the grants committee would look at applications. I don't know, again, Jen or Holly, maybe you will.
I don't believe so. It just has to be nonprofit.
Right. What if the two collaborators are working on the same new project? I'm not sure I understand. I guess you're both working, you would apply, one of them would have to be the lead applicant, right?
Right, so you as the applicant would be entirely considered the grant recipient. So you would be 100% responsible for making sure that the work that you are applying for money to fund gets completed. And that includes another organization's contribution. So certainly, I guess, two applications could be complementing one another in that way, that they are each fulfilling each organization's own mission aligned goal. So if it happens to work out that way, I think that's all right. That's fine, but it's not, we envision more people will probably have separate projects, but there would be no rule against it if they're related.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. I think it would really make the case, though, for the grants committee, I would really make the case that the two projects are different enough, that they're complementary, but they're different enough, not that you're both applying for the same project with the same collaboration. I think that would. All right. Anything else? I think we've gone through. Did we answer everybody's question that was put in? Would you rather just speak and not type? That's fine.
You can unmute yourself and ask one too if you would like to, if you don't want to type it in.
We're here. Great.
Okay, well, best
All
wishes,
right.
everybody, and please contact us if you have any questions as you go through the process. The number again is 305-292-1502, or contact Holly at cffk.org.
Great. Thank you all very much for your time.
Can you say that phone number one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes, 305-292-1502. And cffk.org/grants is where you'll find everything you need. Thank you all.
Thank you.